Uh, so not to sit in silence. Let's start, and I'm gonna be sending the invitations again in the meantime. Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, Maybe first of all, I'll quickly introduce myself. My name is Marek. I'm from University of Amsterdam. What I do currently is I take part in a project that investigates AI in early disease detection,
hmm,
and we are specifically trying to answer a question: what if AI would revolutionize early disease cancer detection,
yeah,
early cancer detection? That's why I wanted to speak to you. Um, I want to delve deep into the field and use the knowledge to spread awareness, because
yeah,
myself, I cannot change anything, but I can let other people know that
yeah,
something is happening. So yeah, maybe tell me something about yourself and about what your startup does.
yeah, sure. So what we focus on is early detection of throat cancer, and how it was born in essence was you have a problem in the medical field, which means that ENT physicians, general ENT physicians, are not that capable of detecting and classifying at the same time while they're doing an endoscopic examination of the throat what the type of lesion is, which means that there has to be a lot of like additional checks and balances, which take a lot of time and cost a lot of money, which is in terms of time not for the benefit of the patient, because there is a correlation with time and a worse overall survival for throat cancer. So, and head and neck surgeons are the super specialists, but they mainly are in the academic centers, and also, there aren't that many head and neck surgeons. Uh, we had a clear problem that we started with together with Radboud UMC head and neck surgery department. So, two head and neck surgeons there said, can we for in some way capture our knowledge, put it in an AI tool, and make it available for ENT physicians to have our knowledge available everywhere, so that they can make effective choices in real time. So it has to run in real time during an endoscopic examination. It has to be vendor agnostic, which means that it has to run on all different types of endoscopes from different endoscope manufacturers. And it has to be able, ideally, that was their hope, that we could subclassify and also add regions of the head and neck, so the nose and tongue base and such. So that's how we started. Now, fast forward almost 6 years, and we have applied for the MDR, for the medical device certification, which now in January they're going to go through the final review. And yeah, if all goes well, then we have a medically approved medical device on the market. And our aim is always, and that's the thing that we always, that's what we believe in, and that's what we still believe in, and we really focus on, is to have let's say, from design and development to market launch, and how the system analyzes data, to have an ethical framework in the back, basically, for us as a business, in every part of the, let's say, early design to how the data is transferred, that we use the medical ethical ways, which means no processing of personal data, only transferring encrypted hard drives physical, so face to face. We work with video, so they're always anonymized. But also that the system, how we build the system as it runs in the clinical practice, is that it just fetches the real-time feed of the endoscope via connection to the video processor. There's no processing of any personal data, so there's no connection to the electronic health record. There's no any other parts, let's say, even from name, age, smoking, drinking, that sort of thing. The system doesn't touch it, because it's only connected to the video processor, because that's where the real, let's say, added value is when it comes to our throat cancer detection tool. And other than that, it processes nothing, and it also stores nothing. So so we really thought about all these things, so that you also counter a little bit the hesitation from the market, which is correctly, because what you see is that when it comes from business, there's always the question, okay, which corners are you cutting in order to make it, let's say, make it profitable, or bring your product to the market quick? Yeah, I mean, we don't do that. So that means the downside is that it takes a longer time. To give you an example, it took us 12 months to sign a data transfer agreement with the UMC Groningen, the medical center in Groningen, because that's the ethical way. We could have done it differently. We didn't. But that means that, you have to wait 12 months for a 50-page contract to be signed in order for you to physically start, transferring the data. And those are choices that, that we make because we feel that it is important in this field.
Nice. That's very good to hear that you stress out the ethical boundaries of your business, because what we, for example, found out during our project was that the uncertainty among end customers is very high about AI application in healthcare, mainly because of the not only ethical but also like privacy and security concerns. So this
Yeah.
is a very very important topic, and yeah, that's very good, and thank you for stressing it out. But also for me, as a I would say casual enthusiast of technology and I study data science, so I should know. But could you tell me more, how does actually AI contribute to what you do?
Yeah, so I mean, we what we use is a deep learning algorithm that is basically an object detection, does object detection on, in this particular case, the larynx, but we can train it on let's say any moving video, tubular environment, so to speak, that you come with an endoscope. Yeah, and what it does is what it then enables is real-time analysis, not only detection but also classification on what the end user then sees. So we use the YOLO architecture, and in this particular case is all our, how do you say, the entire power of our solution is the AI that basically drives it. Of course, it is our brilliant CTO Jonathan that enables, if it works well and if it does what it needs to do in the correct way. And then I think that there is the beauty of this product, is what the end user receives doesn't change anything to their work. So it's basically, it takes us let's say 5 minutes to install it. So it's plug and play. It's completely closed. So, and there's no data being processed or stored while it is running. And all we need is electricity in that sense. So what the customer, or in this case what the user gets, is something really simple. But what is behind it is, of course, is AI. And what we see is that, it's such a powerful tool that can do so much if done in the right way, of course, because there are many, what we see, AI initiatives out there that we question what is the motive behind it and what they're doing with let's say the data. And I think that transparency is something that is key, and especially in the medical market. I mean, the legislation that we have to comply with is immense. I mean, it's the MDR, so the medical device regulation is it's a nightmare in terms of it's so complex, and you have to provide so much documentation. But the good thing, and we're really happy that the MDR is there, because the good thing is that what comes on the market is basically, has gone through the ringer, and continuously has to go through the ringer. Because, for instance, in our case, we have to every 3 months provide a periodic safety update report, where we, on the algorithm side and on the, let's say, the medical environment side, we have to provide to see if we identified any new risks, or if there are any faults, bugs that we identified or that users identified, faulty mistakes that it made in the field that causes a callback or recall. So, and that I think that is the then you can really bring technology like AI into a field that there are a lot of mistakes being made anyway by humans, but that is still somewhat acceptable. And if you bring a new technology, you have to really be mindful to that you're not dealing with that people say, "Oh, I've always done it this way," because it's about identity and the fear that a technology like this maybe takes over part of their work and at some point takes wrong decisions. So what we always have to do is to say, okay, listen, it's really simple. This is how it takes a decision, or this is how a decision basically is made by the system, and this is how the system processes it. But at the end of the day, you are still in the driving seat. And I think that has to be a really fine balance, and you have to find in each market the kind of tango that you have to dance with your users, how this technology is being used, and what the fears are, and how you counter those fears.
Right, and since we are talking about replacing the human factor here, so actually the AI making the decision, I was
Yeah, but
wondering.
that's not what we do. So in our case, is
Yeah.
we what we say is we just provide a prediction, and then at the end of the day, the end user can decide, let's say, based on in this particular current stage of the clinical work, they still have to do, for instance, if they are in doubt, a biopsy to check if it is actually correct. If it is a head and neck surgeon, they can probably see it on the spot if it is correct or not. But we are not about replacing. So all we want to do is make the flow of clinical decision making more efficient, which means that if you look at the current, so I will tell you a little bit about the current problem, is that every let's say lesion that they see and they are in doubt with, the patient gets clinical standards to get a biopsy. A biopsy is considered quite invasive. It costs quite a lot of money, and it takes 37 days for it, on average in the Netherlands, for it to get the results back, because the pathology labs are, overworked and understaffed. And what you see is that, let's say, when it comes back, it's cancer. Okay, then the process of the patient going to an academic center to get treatment, and they're having to redo a lot of tests, get started. But let's say when it's a benign lesion and it's fine, you still have made considerable costs, and a biopsy on the vocal cords always has comorbidity with other problems. So patients, are hoarse their entire life, or lose their part of, their voice gets squeaky or whatever. So there's a lot of problems with that. So what we, together with Radboud UMC, kind of calculated in terms of a business case is, if you can efficiently use follow-ups in terms of, you use the tool, our Zeno AI tool, and you can see it's a benign lesion, it's fine, and you use the follow-up procedure of patients saying, okay, come back in 3 months, so we do another check to see if there's, if it's still good. Instead of standard, taking a biopsy, you can save a lot of cost waiting time, so that's pressure off the pathologist. And in the case of the cancers, in some particular cases, the head and neck surgeons are also in doubt. And of course, the beauty about AI is we only feed it quality validated data, and validated data in our case means the histopathology, which means the biopsy, the cell research from the lab, and the diagnosis. So we have retrospective data in that sense, the diagnosis from the head and neck surgeons. So that what the system gets fed in terms of data will always be high quality validated data. But of course, at some point, it will be over 90% in terms of performance. And what the beauty there is then when we reach that point, you can really efficiently start making decisions. Also, if you use it in the general practitioner's office as a first check, this was mentioned by the head and neck surgeons at Radboud. They say, okay, if we move it out of the hospital, the feed in the hospital also gets more efficient. Therefore, the waiting time for the patients who actually need care also drops, and you much more efficiently can monitor these people that have vocal lesions or problems in their environment, so they don't have to travel an hour and a half to an academic center, for instance, if they had treatment. So it's also for patients who already had radiotherapy or surgery on a vocal cord carcinoma, and they need aftercare. This aftercare can then also take place in their their own environment, so to speak. If you use this technology and you start using it in the first line care. So in that sense, it really makes the flow more efficient. But it's never to replace, because that's something that we really stress and think it is important, because we don't believe in the technology replacing. We believe in the technology assisting.
I see. Well, thank you for stressing it out because it was my mistake
No worries.
uh, here. When you spoke about the usage of your solution, I'm not fully familiar. How does it look? Is it used on your phone, or do you need some hardware with that?
It's used during an endoscopic examination. So how it basically works is we connect via video splitter, in essence, the hardware device, or the hardware where it runs on. We connect it to the back of the video processor, so it catches the feed from the endoscopic examination. And how they do it is they do a flexible, for instance, nasal endoscopic examination. So it goes through the nose, tiny camera, and then they go all the way to the back to the vocal cords. And of course, in the future, we can have all the other subregions available. And now we have it on two screens, but we're working for the new version as an overlay. So in essence, you see it there and then. And then the physician normally, because they always, by clinical standard, they take an endoscopic examination because they need to see what is there. And then he or she can decide, based on the information, what is the next steps. If they then decide to record a video, it is out of the scope of our system. So they have an electronic health record, and some hospitals standard record a video and it's getting uploaded in an electronic health record, and others, don't do that. That's also not something that we deal with. All we do is real-time feed. We analyze the feed, and then they can decide what is the next step. I saw a
Right.
question.
Yeah, David has a question.
Hello here. One quick question. How do you actually manage or deal with, let's say, personal data abuse, or the field of data and how you store it, and maybe even if the data is actually then privately stored, or is it anonymous? How do you deal with that? Thank you.
Yeah, you mean when it's running in the hospital, or
so the process when you kind of collect the data.
Yeah, so the beauty is, and this is I think also very, very good when it comes to videos. So the hospital has a database. Of course, there they have all the patient information and the patient numbers, etc. So the video itself doesn't have any metadata also. So what they do is they strip, all the codings and everything from it. They make a simple Excel with, they name it video 1, video 2, etc. They do that in the Excel, and then they write left or right or both. They write the pathological, so the histopathology of that particular video, and then they write the diagnosis from them as head and neck surgeons. And that is all we train the system on, because what they do is, normally you see when you start the video, you see a patient's face and let's say the lower part of the nose, but they cut it in a way that all we get is when the endoscope already is in the nose, and the moment they pull it out, they stop the video basically and cut it there.
I see.
So what we have, and I think that is also something that is very convenient in this case, is that they really make sure that there's no way, because also on the screen itself, there's no patient information. All you see is the vendor of the endoscope. So that's Pentax Medical or Olympus, for instance. And that's it, and the date. But nothing can be traced whatsoever to anything personal from the patient. And on site, when it runs in the hospital, that's also a very conscious choice that we made, is, some users asked, okay, but can you integrate it in our electronic health record? And we said, well, that's not something that we want to do, because then you deal, with everything, related to personal data of patients, and we don't want to touch that, because that's also not where our tool, actually adds value in that sense. That's more a practical thing if they can. That was a practical question or request, but we don't want to deal with it because it's such a. One surgeon said something funny, which is a little. I agree with him. He said, "Well, the thing is that with personal data, on daily basis, people leave their personal data on bol.com. But when it comes to, let's say, age, sex, and a smoker, drinker, fitting or for a good purpose, if it's used for the better, it's all of a sudden a problem." And I agree partly, and I disagree also partly, in the sense that patients, we use only patient consent data. So they specifically, in the academic centers, specifically get consent from patients to use their data to enhance the field. So that's all we basically get. There are also patients who basically say no, and that is then also not stored by the hospital itself. So that's a hospital policy in the academic centers. So all we get is basically anonymized videos of patients who gave consent for that.
Got it. So with the consent, you are not actually allowed to also kind of sell the data or like kind of use it or integrate it into your business plan to kind of further do any. So it's just research based or basically no private data.
No private data, and the thing is of course then in a sense that in the consent that they give, it's there because it's not like that's why we need the data transfer agreements and collaboration contracts with the hospital, because they, there it really stipulates, what the collaboration is and how the hospital contributing to that collaboration basically wants. The goal is to move the field forward. And also in those collaborations that we have with the hospitals, in terms of we also give back to the research in terms of when we start, making profit with the tool, money comes back into a research fund to fund further research for to enhance basically patient care. And that is something that we as a company feel is really important. So because we always, we feel it's very important to contribute to that, but it's also part of the collaboration in a sense as well, because that's something that they need to bring forward the field in this sense. And the good thing about the videos itself is that it's, there's no way to trace it back whatsoever. And we also don't want to deal with things like if it's a smoker, yes or no, because at the end of the day, the real value of our tool is real-time detection, classification of a lesion. And we don't care if someone smoked or drinks or is 60 years or 20 years. It doesn't matter, because it's about that specific environment where at that moment in time it needs to do an analysis. And that's the good thing about our tool. I mean, I know medtech startup founders from other companies who deal with data from the electronic health record. They all say like it just depends on what you add in terms of the value in the clinical decision making, in what medical specialism, because I know radiology, there are companies in the US that you can even buy CT scans. You can buy data sets, which I when I heard this, I felt like to me, then you kind of miss the purpose of the whole medical ethical elements. But in some medical specialisms there is, and also some countries, they have a different view on that and how it's.
I was going to say I did an internship at a startup in Canada, and they did patient monitoring with AI sensors. And it was exactly this case that you just explained, besides the fact that they had anonymous data. So I think that was maybe the only ethical way to do it. But interesting take. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe I'll just stress out, Jan, if you also have some questions, go for it. It's supposed to be an open discussion. About the high restrictions on data accessibility, I was thinking, how did you get the data to train your models at first?
Well, and this is the thing, like, that it's kind of like, how do you say it? I always say it had to do with the fact that this 2018 big tech was kind of cocking it up in in a big extent. And coincidentally, Google bought, I think, in the US from 2,400 hospitals like medical data, and this was in the news. And then the European court said, "Well, wait a minute, that's not allowed." So in a way, the distrust against the big tech companies and the way they deal with the privacy and the data issues, but also the transparency in the back, there was a subject back then. And I mean, it's how this tool started was informal relationships, working in this field, and kind of building up trust. And I mean, at the end of the day, we had to deal with, of course, also the legal parts of it, which I always think fit a purpose for the good. Because if you sign, if you are legally, let's say, if you agree on the terms and conditions of how this collaboration and this data transfer in this sense takes place, then that is completely in line with the medical ethical part. So, and I mean, at the end of the day, and that's what I said in the beginning, we don't cut corners. So that means, sometimes you have to sit on your hands for 12 months, and you can't do anything because there's no data transfer agreement signed. So the data cannot be transferred. And that's always the thing that we really had to. I mean, it's also building up a relationship. And now we are in the field of ENT in the Netherlands, especially. We have really good partnerships with big names, also considered from a physician level, let's say the key opinion leaders in their field, from both UMC Groningen as well as Radboud UMC. And they are peer-to-peer sponsors in that sense to get their colleagues on board, had to really move the field further, because there is a big problem in this specific field that we are in. Of course, you have in many medical specialisms different problems that AI potentially can deal with or solve partly. But in our field, we had the right sponsors, so to speak, to really push it forward. But we also we really went deep in terms of, doing a really good clinical study, which was published. That helps in a head and neck magazine. So retrospective clinical study. Now we are doing a prospective multi-center clinical study that's studying in January with both Radboud and UMC Groningen, where you see it working in the field. Because our key adoption, in essence, is that we can show the added value as a decision support system, a smart assistant, while a physician, either in training or an ENT physician with 1 or 5 or 10 years experience, or a head and neck surgeon, is basically using it on a daily basis, and to compare basically the results. So it's progress over time. And for us, it was building the relationship via an informal connection. I have quite a substantial medical network in that sense, and you have to build trust. I mean, it's at the end of the day, it starts with a legal framework where you can stipulate what you expect from one another and what the rules are and the regulations. So that's what we also have to deal with.
Quick question from my side, maybe a bit more a personal question, but how do you get first started in this, medicine/AI field? Do you have like any previous background or academic background in this field, or and then maybe a follow-up question would be, how do you then find like co-founders in this specific field, and maybe how can you convince them, I guess, with a bit more technical background then, that you're, for example, the right person to lead the company and also kind of found the startup?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I don't have any background whatsoever I studied psychology, but I think like many people were an enthusiast of the potential of AI, and neuropsychology was my favorite subject, so that of course has a lot to do with how AI works. But I saw, I come from in my family I have several doctors, and the thing is I was fascinated, like, okay, so why is there a mismatch now when 2018, with the technology and then clinical use. And that was basically the start of the adventure. And I mean, how the company started was, I think, how my personality is, which is, okay, if no one done it before and I see an opportunity, let's dive into it. And then I'll deal with, all the details along the way. Yeah, I guess also luck. I mean, I was lucky at some point to find an informal investor who believes in impact and also believes in high risk impact, and then said two weeks before we didn't have any money anymore. Yeah, after 30 minutes, I believe it. I think you're on the right track with the right people. Tell me what you need, and we'll see what I can do. And he's still with us. Yeah, it's. I mean, Jonathan was the first employee. He's now the CTO. He built Zeno AI, which is the throat cancer tool. Yeah, and from that you kind of, I mean, I guess it's finding people who have the similar mindset of wanting to make impact with, in this particular case, a technology, and share. Yeah, is it a dream? I guess so. That you can really push your field forward, even if it takes 20, 30 years, for the better of, in this particular case, patients and care also with technology. And yeah, how do you? I mean, and I think that that's why I like the question always. It's like how the hell did this, how did this work? It's also talking to a lot of people, trying to reach out. There's also, I mean, falling flat on your face if you're, I've had so many knockouts, in so to speak, that also teaches you a lot. So every no is a potential yes. You make mistakes along the way, also in people, maybe it has also sometimes a direction. But I think that in my particular cases, I always had the mission was always the most important thing, and also in that mission, a lot of decisions that we made for the better of our patients and our users, and that ethical element, which is really important for us. Yeah, and then sometimes you make decisions that other people would not make. It also has to do with personality. I mean, if you let's say if money is a driver, yeah, then you don't have to go into this business, because it might be in 20 years, but that's it takes so long. It's like a medicine coming on the market. For a medical device to come on the market and become broadly adopted, 10 to 15 years. So you have to be willing to be really patient. And if that's, I mean, that's part of my personality. Is it's like if someone says, "Oh, you cannot do this," then I get motivated. And if someone says, "Oh, but it takes way too long and it's so hard," then I get motivated. So you have to, it has to be part of that. And yeah, I guess that it's also a collection of luck. How do you say a lot of luck element is part of it as well. It's, lucky that Jonathan wanted to work at a startup instead of a bigger company, and then lucky that we read a paper about the YOLO architecture, and it was really suitable for the type of task that it needed to do for our tool. Yeah, I guess I guess it's a lot of that. But I guess the main thing is you have to be motivated to make an impact, and I guess it's finding an opportunity, seeing that there is a problem to solve, and if that technology can solve that problem, making a framework in this sense for the company and the product of how it deals with all these different elements. And then it's about storytelling for people to join the mission. But it's also you sometimes have to push back in terms of that when people make comments that are not correct, or stress fears that are not accurate, then say, well, listen, the reality is this. So that's a little bit how it came to life in that sense. But it started, and that's the core. We always focus on what is the medical problem, and therefore the need for, in the end, the patients. That's the most important. But the medical specialists having to deal with that problem on a daily basis, and how can we utilize AI to solve that problem? That's the core.
Fascinating. Thank you.
Nice. Thank you. That's very inspiring. And you are now at Startup Village, right? Or no?
Yeah,
Nice.
in your backyard, I guess, because you are at Science Park or not?
No.
Okay.
I'm at Roters Island originally,
Okay. Yeah.
but I know Startup Village very, very well. So
Yeah. The colorful,
it's beautiful.
colorful place.
I don't know, David, if you know, but Startup Village is basically offices for rent that are made out of shipping containers, and it's a very nice ecosystem for startups in Amsterdam. Very nice. It's I think university run, right? It's UvA
Yeah.
Ventures.
Yeah, so it's from UvA Ventures, and it's behind the AI and mathematics faculties. Yeah, it's really nice that it's here because it's a tiny community. I guess it's like 45 companies, give or take, but all AI, I think one or two quantum, and it's really nice to see what it's really in the back of the UvA grounds as well, like in this kind of dead corner. But it's really, and now in winter it's a little grim, but in summer, it's a very fruitful environment, and it's good also to see that there is so much going on when it comes to AI. And also, I think I was one blockchain food company. Yeah, I mean, it's nice to be part of this, and it's also nice to be part of this. I guess UvA environment because there's a lot happening. It's nice. It's really nice.
Yeah.
It's important that
I like the drinks and the barbecue when it
Yeah,
happens. Because they have like a monthly drinks.
Exactly. Yeah. And in summer the big barbecue and at the back. Yeah, it's nice. It's a
It's
nice,
amazing.
nice vibe.
All right, David. If you don't have any more questions, maybe I have one more question, maybe related to David. Are you guys hiring? Because David wants to get into the industry. I feel like.
Nice. Well, not at the moment, but next year definitely we are because we are now in the. We made a conscious decision to not go for to basically let our current and only investor fund our next year, but with the notion that we need to scale up, so to speak, next year, which mid 2024 we need a significant jump because we also want to expand the functionalities of the tool to the nose tongue base, but we also want to apply for FDA approval. I don't know when, if it's now or that you are looking for a job, or if let's say in 6 months or 9 months, let's say you're still vacant. But I mean, you can always currently know, but the future is still very open. And we have a small core team of data scientists, 2, 3 at the moment. But that needs to grow once we also grow in terms of, because we're also working on like R&D tools, really exciting ones, Parkinson's screening potentially, if it all works out. So there's a lot still open. So by all means, if the time is right, keep the dialogue open.
All right, we'll keep that in mind. So this was like last pop-up question from my side. So David, if no more questions, I just wanted to end it off with asking you, Marius, what would you say to us as students that want to get into this industry, that want to spread information and AI among people and improve it in healthcare? What would you advise us?
Yeah, that's a really nice question. Well, I mean, the main advice is, it's not the main advice mainly is that if you want to go in, especially into medtech, that you always open your ears for the things that are not said, And not consider a technology that you put on the market as to say like, okay, here's the technology, it's better than you as a user, for instance, just use it. But first, let's start with listening to the people that are having to use it, and kind of try to take their fears or comments or hesitation into the design of your tool. Because at the end of the day, you can make the most brilliant tool, which works like clockwork. You implement it, and people say like, "Yeah, sorry, but it's 2 clicks that I need to do more. I'm not going to do 2 clicks because this is the reality. I'm not. This is not a joke, but I mean, in day-to-day clinical work, by imposing more work, even if it is 2 clicks or 3 clicks or one app, whatever, but imposing more work on them creates hesitation into the effect of using it. So if you are able to translate from the start, and that's why you always have to involve your users from the start. It's a co-development. Hear their pains, look at them, and can try to see, okay, let's say our 2 people where it started with are relatively young, and mid 40 and mid 30, but also then go all the way to the back of the 60-year-olds still working. And how can you build something that also caters their way of working, and where basically all they need to do is do what they normally do, tap on a pedal in our case, it happens, and that's all you need to do. So I think that is really important, and just have a lot of patience, because it's medtech is not easy. It's definitely not easy, but it's really exciting, and there's so much happening, and I mean there's so much impact that you can have with technology like AI. So we find something that really it makes you want to kind of sometimes have very lonely months where you are like, what the hell am I doing? This is not fun. But because there is a intrinsic motivation to really make an impact, and it can be a personal thing. I mean, to me, it was a personal thing why I wanted this. For somebody else, everyone brings something personal to why they want to contribute to this. So for yourself, in this case, is also finding something personal that keeps you motivated and keeps you want to push without cutting a corner, because that's really key.
Right. Thank you very much.
And party. That's my
And party.
that's my advice to students. No, but I mean it's like how we set up as a business culture. Maybe that's an important one. Is to not have to not be a traditional like top-down type of company where you start to dictate people, when they have to come in and how they have to do their work. It's about giving people the freedom to do the work when they want to do it, and not be tied to a time. But at the end of the day, when something needs to be delivered, it needs to be delivered. But to give people a normal balance in life, because at the end of the day, it's also, and this is the key bit. I think I am considered successful for my own, in my own opinion, if 10 years down the line, all the people who now work here are still working here. Because then there is something, and I mean, it has to be balanced, so everyone has to remain sharp and not be like doing a trick but that's the exciting thing about the field. There's so much that we also do in the R&D part that is so new, and not on the market yet, that will always be triggered, the hunger. But I guess that you have to create a company where everyone feels comfortable and happy, and I think that's my job. At the end of the day, I have to monitor, and that's maybe then the psychological thing finally coming to work. But to monitor if everyone is still okay, if everyone is still on the page, and if someone is not, like hear him or her out, and try to find that common ground to jointly kind of make an impact. I think that's really important.
So maybe I'll have one last very quick question.
Yeah, sure, man.
Once we create this company, and once we find this enthusiasm, and we hype up for what we want to do, how to bring it to consumer? How would you advise on it?
In medtech, you need, of course, the medical device regulation. That is it takes on average 24 months for a medical device to be approved, and then it's a year of prep work when you apply. So, but once the product is there, it's a slow process. So medical devices, and especially in our, let's say, the innovation medical devices, it's really hard. So find a partner that is a door opener. So we collaborate with one of the market leaders in endoscope manufacturing for reseller purposes, because they have a track record at, let's say, 40, 50, 60, 80, 100 years in some cases, and they know, how to open doors in a hospital. Because at the end of the day, if you need a kind of a group of people, which is your end user. Ideally, they are, a senior or a group leader or a department head. You need IT because you're IT product. So if you have a efficient group, you have your user, you have your IT. Ideally, you have a legal framework, and that can be through a reseller. And then you need a reseller or kind of a big hardware related company that is already in the medical field, because then they can enable scaling relatively fast. I say relatively because the sales cycle is on average 12 months for one customer. But bring everyone on board from the get-go, and now you see a shift in medical care that they call it dynamic purchasing teams. So they have, legal, IT department heads and the board already in one meeting group. And so some hospitals have it already set up like that, and then you see that the process is relatively straightforward. But you need to have the MDRs, or the medical device regulation. Without it, they're not even going to consider. And you need a good clinical study, and ideally retrospective, prospective, to really show the medical benefit from the basically peer-to-peer, so in the medical community itself. And then if you have reimbursement, which we are also applying for in the Netherlands, for instance, because then you also need to have a reimbursement dossier, which is a 70-page collection, basically, of your clinical proof, but also what you can add to the medical facility, for medical care, and potentially what costs you can save, and how patients basically get better care. If you have that, then the story is more compelling. But again, you need a big name in the industry that has big market share and that can enable growth a little quicker. I think that's a key bit. So in your, let's say, design phase of the company, your startup, you just identify already. So you do a stakeholder analysis. So who are the people in the market, and also kind of a competitive analysis, because then you can also see, do I have a unique proposition, or do I need to, in my story, tell people that I'm better than a competitor? And ideally, you find a small niche market where you can really impact, where one or two, let's say, hardware vendors are the market leaders. You make an overview. These are the people that I need. It's kind of like it's a recipe for a good start. And then you start involving them, ideally already from the start. And I would say from the reseller's perspective, when you have your clinical proof and the buy-in from one or two users, and you already, let's say, applied for your medical device regulation approval, because then you can dictate the terms better than if you take them in from the start. They will probably say, oh, it's a really nice technology, and then they kind of push you out and do it themselves. So you want to have that autonomy to stay independent from anyone, because then you can make decisions on your own rather than them deciding what to do for you. So I think that is the important when you start.
All right. So now we basically have a whole business plan.
Well, listen, if you have if this is a market that you want, you have ambitions in, and I mean, I'm always open to read, let's say, business plan, or to discuss, potentials, because, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a very young field. You kind of, in research, you see a lot of, you give a field that it's already well involved, or well, how do you say it, evolved. But in the reality, it's still in its infancy. So if you really have an idea and a problem that you can solve with the technology, I mean, I'm always open to be your sparring partner in that, because I think it's very important that these initiatives basically see the light and help people. So by all means, I can help out with anything.
All right,
if you need.
thank you. We already have each other on LinkedIn, so I'm gonna reach
Yeah,
out to you once
yeah,
I have something. David, also add Marius on LinkedIn if you want
yeah,
to,
most definitely.
since he is open for help, like
Also,
to giving help.
yeah,
But yeah, thank you very much. Really,
yeah, of course.
it was a great session. Are you okay if I share the recording with people that couldn't join today? Okay,
Sure.
that's what I'm gonna do, because 3 people texted me already that they need a recording,
Yeah,
and
sure.
well, I wish you all the best.
Yeah,
I hope
same
to
to
see
you.
you on some drinks at Startup Village.
Most
And
def, most def. And always reach out when you need to. It's you can always reach out.
all right, I'll keep that in
Cool.
mind. Thank you.
Have a good day, guys.
Have a good day, guys.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.